Wonderful!
Hey everybody, how's it going? Mario and Rayman. Do they have the potential to cross over? That's a question that's been on my mind a lot lately, especially after playing Rayman and the Phantom Show, the DLC for Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. It was a good DLC. It was a great expansion to an already great game, but I was kinda hoping for a little bit more of crossover between Mario and Rayman themselves. I mean, yeah, it was great seeing Rayman back and getting to play as him. It was super cool, but I was hoping we would have at least gotten something in the form of even just something small, like just a handshake, a wave, just acknowledgement between Mario and Rayman that the other exists. We didn't really get that. I mean, we got them exchanging memorabilia through the Rabbids, like Rayman got a makeshift Mario hat that was most likely made by the Rabbids, and then Rayman gave Mario what was seemingly a one-to-one replica of his iconic hoodie. So it was a nice little thing to see, but I wanted more. Luckily, I think that the door has opened now. By having Rayman in DLC for a Mario spin-off, I think that the potential is there for there to actually be a full-blown crossover down the line. And so that's what I want to really go in depth about today, is talking about what an actual Mario and Rayman crossover could look like, how it would play, all the ins and outs. Let's start with what it could actually look like what would be the art direction for a game like this. I think that there are a lot more options, especially after Mario Wonder came out, because this is such a fresh new look for 2D Mario, especially coming off of the style that we had with New Super Mario Bros. Since, 2006? So yeah, this style is great. It's a breath of fresh air. You've got these almost kind of pastel colored backgrounds. You've got these vibrant, soft models with a ton of personality. They're stylish, they're expressive, and I think this is a style that would pair very well with the style that we see in Rayman Legends with the UbiArt engine. I really wish Ubisoft would use that engine more because, oh my gosh, it is just gorgeous. But anyways, I think if you combined sort of the painterly illustrated backgrounds of Rayman Legends with some of the softer models from Mario Wonder and maybe add in some of the 2D sketchy elements on top of those 3D models, I think that that would allow for a unique sort of middle ground between those two styles where you wouldn't sacrifice the stylistic integrity of either of the series. Alright, so next we gotta talk about the music. What would this game sound like? And there's a lot of potential here because on the Mario side of things, you have Koji Kondo, and on the Rayman side of things, you have Christophe Herral. Both are incredible video game composers, and to have both of these games' sounds incorporated into a single crossover game would be just mind-blowing to me because you'd have Mario's more jazz influence, kind of big band style, mixed with the wackier, grandiose fantasy music that's present in the Rayman games. And combining those two sounds into one unique identity for the crossover, I think that it would be really fun to see. Alright, enough about what the game is going to look and sound like. I want to get into the bigger stuff. Starting with the premise. What would be the whole motivation for bringing these two franchises together? Now, at first, I thought that they could do something like Mario plus Rabbids, where you have a device that brings the two universes together into sort of this alternate reality type thing, but no. I'd rather have it be something that could canonically exist in both universes. So I started thinking of okay, what do these two series have in common that I could draw inspiration from? So I turned to Rayman first. So Rayman takes place in the Glade of Dreams, and the Glade of Dreams is looked over by Palokus, or the Bubble Dreamer, who is sort of the god of this universe. He has the ability to manifest dreams into reality, and that's how the Glade of Dreams exists. That's how Rayman and all of his friends exist. And so I started thinking, okay, we got dreams. Is there anything in Mario that relates directly to the concept of dreaming? And yeah, Wart and Subcon from Super Mario Bros. 2. I feel like that would be a perfect fit. You could have something where Wart gets upset after being defeated by Mario and his friends, so he moves on to some bigger goal, some bigger score, and he goes into the dreams of Palokus, which causes him and his armies to be manifested into the real world in the Glade of Dreams. This would cause Palokus to obviously need to call Rayman to remedy the situation, but also Mario and his friends because they've dealt with Wart before. I just think this would be a fun way to not only cross over the two series, but to also bring back a villain that I've wanted to come back for a super long time. Okay, so now that we've established the general foundation for this crossover, here comes the exciting part. getting to talk about how this game would play. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the cast of characters. So on the Rayman side of things, I think we'd have Rayman, Globox, Barbara, and Grand Minimus filling in the role of the Teensy. I was thinking between Grand Minimus and the Goth Teensy, but I think that Grand Minimus just works a bit better. And then on the Mario side of things, because we have Wart returning as the villain, I think it would be fun to have the cast of Super Mario Bros. 2 come back. So that would be Mario, Peach, Luigi, and Toad. I think that that makes for a pretty good cast. You might think that that's too many characters, but look at what Mario Wonder just did with its massive cast of characters. I think that it would be doable even in a crossover like this. So moving back to the gameplay and why exactly it's going to be a little bit tricky to come up with some mechanics this time around. While Mario and Rayman have a lot of the standard 2D platformer mechanics in common, Rayman has something particularly different from Mario: combat. And I'm not talking about the use of stuff like power-ups. I mean actual combat-focused moves baked into the Rayman cast moveset. While Mario characters typically just jump on enemies or do ground pounds, Rayman characters are also able to punch, kick, dash attack, uppercut, as well as having the insane range due to Rayman having his iconic disjointed punching attacks. If there was going to be a crossover, something would need to be done in order to put all these characters on somewhat of an equal playing field so every character can make it through every level with no issues. I think that there are two ways that they could handle this. Option one is to make the Rayman characters play exactly how they do in Rayman Legends and Origins, and then have the Mario cast play exactly how they do in Wonder, with maybe the addition of the charge jump and picking up enemies from Super Mario Bros. 2. This way, all Rayman cast members would play the same, while all the Mario characters would play the same. This would allow players to pick which playstyle they prefer, and the Mario characters would be able to have the same range of attack as the Rayman cast by having the ability from Super Mario Bros. 2 to pick up enemies and throw them. I think that this could work, but I'm personally not a fan of this idea. So I think that the other option is to give each character their own unique attributes like how the Mario cast had in Mario Bros. 2. And this goes for the Rayman cast as well. I still think that giving each character at least a basic punch and kick would be needed, but from there, I think that the characters need to become a bit more unique. And because we're doing the whole thing of dreams and manifesting into reality, I think that you would be able to pull a lot of references from each character's past into their unique moveset. So starting with the Mario cast, I think that Peach would have her parasol and be able to glide with it and then also swing it for a basic attack. Luigi would have the higher jump height and have his flutter kick back. I think that Toad would once again have his abnormal strength from Super Mario Bros. 2 and be able to pick up larger enemies with ease and have a little bit more attack strength than the rest of the cast. And then on the Rayman side of things get a little bit more interesting because all of Rayman's friends played exactly the same as him in Rayman Origins and Legends. But I think that if you're giving all the Mario cast their own unique attributes, the same has to go for the Rayman cast as well. For Globox, I think that maybe he could be one of the slower characters, but have a ton of strength. Like maybe you could do something where he can't jump as high, but his ground slam attack would have maybe even AoE damage due to his size. You could make Barbara maybe the fastest out of the Rayman cast and also make her attack speed some of the fastest. And then for Grand Minimus, maybe you could make him really fast and be able to jump really high, but he would also be floaty and his physics would be more slippery than the rest of the cast. Now you may have noticed that I haven't mentioned Mario and Rayman yet, and that's because I think that these two characters are going to be handled a bit differently than the rest of the cast. So for Rayman, I think that he has to play exactly how he does in Legends, because if you removed Rayman's long-range punch and his glide, then he wouldn't really feel like Rayman anymore. And so then you got to ask, okay, then what do you give to Mario to make him somewhat on par with the character who's supposed to essentially be his counterpart in this game? So I think that Mario would play pretty much the same as how he does in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, being sort of the all-arounder character, but I think that you add in Cappy into his moveset to give him that similar range to Rayman. Now, I don't think that the hat would have capturable powers like it does in Odyssey, but I still think being able to throw the hat as sort of a ranged attack, or being able to throw it and then hold it in place to use as a platform, that would add a little bit more to Mario's kit. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I think that with Mario and Rayman being the main characters from their respective franchises, they would make the most sense to be the all-arounders and potentially beginner characters for people who might not be as used to like the more precision platforming or the combat of Rayman style of games. Now, I don't think that this would necessarily mean that the characters would be like an easy mode like how Nabbit and Yoshi were in Mario Wonder. I still think that the characters could take damage. They'd still have all the weaknesses that all the other characters have, but they would have that option, that extra power in their kit. And it's you pressing the buttons at the end of the day, so it would really be up to the player if they want to use that extra ability in their kits. Like I said before, the way that I think this crossover crossover would have to work is you don't want to make it where one character has an objective advantage over another character. Every character should be able to make it through a level with ease. But I think there would be added replayability included by basically making paths and like different routes that only certain characters might be able to access. It wouldn't be mandatory, but like if you want to get all the secrets in the game, fully 100% it, it would encourage you to go back through the levels and play as these different characters who might have abilities that are the only ones that can reach these areas. All right, and that does it for the core gameplay. I know it might seem like a lot, but this is actually something that I thought was missing from Mario Wonder. I mean, I liked that they had the freedom to choose whatever character you wanted to play as, but I would have really liked if each of the characters had their own unique attributes that would actually encourage you to try out other characters over others. So in a crossover game with a cast this big, I feel like it's important to have those options available. Alright, so in terms of gameplay, there's still one more key thing that I still haven't mentioned that I want to touch on briefly, and that's power-ups. You might have noticed that I haven't included any. Well, in Super Mario Bros. 2, there weren't any power-ups. It was just the picking up enemies and throwing them. Like, yeah, you had POW blocks and you'd have like the power stars, but other than that, there wasn't traditional power-ups like the Tanuki suit, the fire flower, you know, basic standard Mario power-ups. And then in Rayman, at least for the 2D games, you really don't have any power-ups there either. But I feel like it would be fun to include at least some power-ups in a crossover. So I think that on the Mario side of things, it would just be the fire flower, maybe the ice flower as well, but for the Mario characters, it would just be like the standard fire flower, just shooting fireballs. And then for the Rayman cast, I think it would do something different for them and just give their attacks fire attributes. So like, for example, Rayman's fist would be on fire when he throws it, and Barbara's axe would be on fire when she swings it. Now for the Rayman side of power-ups, I think it would be really cool if they included the laser washing powder cans or combat fatigues from Rayman 3. If I had to say which ones, I would say Vortex and Shock Rocket, because those are the ones that were already included in Rayman and the Phantom Show. I think that the abilities would perform exactly how they do in Rayman 3. So the Vortex ability would allow all characters to shoot small vortexes outwards, and enemies that get caught in it would be thrown or get caught in a cyclone and get stunned. And for the Shock Rocket, I think that this would also behave how it does in Rayman 3. So all characters would shoot a rocket from their hands, and then once the rocket is out, it would travel a short distance, but it would be fully controllable while in the air, and once it hits an enemy or makes contact with a wall or the time wears off, it would explode. I chose these ones specifically because they don't feel too far off from the existing Mario power-ups and how they behave, so this gives a way for some of the Rayman power-ups to feel a little bit more natural in the crossover. And that about does it for the major things that I wanted to talk about for this crossover. I mean, there are plenty more little intricate details that I could go into, but we'd be here all day and I'd just be rambling on and on and on. Like, I'd love to see stuff like little character interactions, all the different enemies from both games being in one place. It would just be so cool to see, because there are things that I love from both of these series on their own that seeing it all come together in one big game would just be a dream come true. And once again, I don't think that this is something that's super far-fetched to happen. Like, we already have Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, we got Rayman as DLC in there. Ubisoft and Nintendo have a great working relationship, so I think that this is something that could happen. And even speaking with Mario and Rabbids, maybe you could even have like Rabbid Mario and Rabbid Peach as unlockable secret characters or something to really drive the crossover nature home. I don't know. I just think that this is something that I would absolutely love seeing at some point in the future, and I know I'm probably not alone in this sentiment, but if you guys have your own ideas for what you would love to see in a crossover like this, leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think. But for now, I think that is enough out of me. So if you guys like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Later.